Nice to see you, by the way, and I'm well.
You too. Thanks. Yeah.
Bruce Cockburn is my guest. Um, we have much to talk about, but one of the things you always want to do with a friend is say, "How are you? How were your 2 years? Are you okay? Are you safe? Are you well?"
Well, more or less, yes to all of those. Yeah, age takes its toll, but yeah, I'm doing fine.
Good. You've been
You're,
busy. It appears as though you've been busy, but I think you pick your spots. I know that Rarities is about to come out, and I know that there's some new music we can talk about at the end of this interview um, that's coming out in the spring. Um, did you find that the keeping busy was kind of essential to A, your workload, and B, your sanity?
um, I don't have to struggle to keep busy. I'm the stuff just keeps coming. But in fact, I wouldn't mind being less busy. But the good side of that is, you don't vegetate as fast. so so I'm happy about that. And the stuff that's going on is good stuff. So that's great. I mean, part of being busy is having a family, and part of it is I mean, just all the day to day that goes with having a family. Part of it is the world of music. And as you said, we've got the Rarities album that's just now out, and the I mean, that's just online, but it exists in the way that those things do. And re-releases, or the vinyl releases, to the general population of albums that were part of a box set originally, commemorating the 50th anniversary of True North. So there's new vinyl, well, new old vinyl, and the Rarities thing, which is old stuff, but some of it's never been out there before. And um, and then there is a new album that the recording's finished. We have to master it still, but that'll be coming out in May.
We'll talk about that in a second. With box sets are meant to take all those rarities and box them into a box set, but there were still tracks out there. I mean, it's remarkable. I'm looking at the background of some of the tunes and how they survived is kind of cool. I think, for example, your leadoff track is only a minute and 18 seconds, Juan Carlos theme, but sometimes if you didn't mark it up well, a theme would disappear. You would never. Where's that master tape of the Juan Carlos theme? But
Yeah,
you know, those kind of things.
right. Well, there's a couple of tracks on the album. That one being one that were written for a documentary film called "The Man We Called Juan Carlos," and that's about a Guatemalan farmer who is kind of driven into the arms of the revolution, of the fight against the Guatemalan government, because his son is killed by the military. And then he goes through a part of his life like that, and then ends up being a kind of elder, wise man in a way. And so that film is it's a very nice little documentary that's now not new, of course, anymore. It was made in the 80s, but
Bruce,
that's when the music was recorded.
you have to bear with me because sometimes the timelines blur. Um, but did Rocket Launcher come from that experience?
No,
Okay,
uh, no. If I had a rocket launcher, came from me being in Chiapas in the south of Mexico.
okay, there you
It was before that. I mean, the rocket launcher came before the soundtrack to Juan Carlos.
go. Water Walker theme, he said, moving along crisply with Hugh Marsh, who actually is also just releasing something with um, Kevin from Bare Naked Ladies. They're doing so. They're keeping busy. This is the soundtrack to the 1984 film Water Walker. from the National Film Board, which you can literally Google and watch at your convenience on your bus ride home if you want to. But it's a fantastic piece of music.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we had a good time doing that. The film was made by Bill Mason, who, for anyone who's interested in canoeing or has had any involvement with that, he'll be a familiar name, because he was he's deceased now, but he was kind of the grand master of Canadian canoeing for many years, and made a number of instructional films for the National Film Board about canoeing, and kind of constructed Water Walker really from the outtakes and stuff that he'd been able to shoot on the side, making those instructional films. And he asked me and to do the music for it, and I enlisted Hugh Marsh's aid as to in that project, and it worked out really well. I think we had a good collaboration, and I think the results were good.
I wonder, were you a canoeer?
When I was young, I was. Yeah. I mean, as an adult, it's been a long time since I've been in a canoe now, but because I don't get around where those are very much. But in the '80s, I had the good fortune to get involved in a couple of extended canoe trips up in the Arctic. Wow. And that was great. But as a kid, I did a lot of canoeing in Algonquin Park in Ontario and elsewhere.
I know that you might have just taken it for granted, but to be a canoeist in Algonquin Park is kind of like dead center of the Canadian experience.
Well, it harks back to the Group of Seven and certainly the Canadian art world. And I mean, Canada, as it was thought of at that time, of course, there's an awful lot of Canadian experience. It doesn't include the landscape of Northern Ontario, but it was pretty archetypal.
I love Bruce Cockburn, by the way, and we're going as many tracks as possible because I think there's 16 of them through Rarities, just been released. Sure. Avalon, my hometown, one of my all-time favorite songs by Mississippi John Hurt. I don't know why I don't know who it was that turned me on to Mississippi John Hurt. It was really early in my life. And the name stuck with me. The character stuck with me. I met him once. I was totally struck. And I just followed his music, and I'm so thrilled. And it was his hometown.
Yeah. He wasn't lying.
Colin Linden was in there with you. Or no, actually, no, Janice Powers was there. It was Avalon. I made a note to myself. It was Avalon that led his. It was Avalon that got rediscovered. He recorded and then went back to sharecropping, and then somebody discovered Avalon, the track, and it led to an invite to the 1963 Newport Folk Festival.
That's a piece of history I didn't have at my disposal, but now I do. Thank you. But yeah, and in a way, his experience was not unlike that of a bunch of other men of his generation, and not just men, I guess women too, blues artists of that generation who were, they could be semi-professional, as younger people, and then the music, people's tastes changed, and they moved on to other things, and then were rediscovered by a different audience altogether, a young white college audience mainly, in the '60s, and that's when I discovered that music also. And he was the single most influential person from that sphere that affected my guitar playing. I would say that,
You know what I was going to say? Was it his voice? Was it the songs, or was it his guitar styling? And I think the strongest thing there, if I could just take a guess, is the guitar stylings, because he played guitar for noisy rooms, bars, etc., halls that didn't have amplification, so it had to be aggressive, and he just owned the guitar. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't personally characterize his playing as aggressive particularly, but he certainly he had a style that was really I mean, technically speaking, he, if you want to get picky, he'd be a folk singer rather than a blues singer, because he did a wide range of material. Some of it was blues songs, but a lot of it was just the folk songs of his world, and other pop songs of the day, and that sort of thing, that in his own style, that all ended up sounding pretty folky. And his guitar style, what he did a lot of the time in his songs was basically fingerpick and play the melody while he sang as well.
Yeah.
And that is, it's a really simple, direct, clear way of playing, and it's not complicated to listen to. It can be quite complicated to execute, but he was very good at it.
By the way, Bruce, you and I have known each other a long time. I would never get picky with you. Never. You were the last person I would get picky with.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Wise users. Again, Hugh Marsh is there on violin. Colin Linden in the studio with you at Pinhead. 1996. Came from where? Was it just a demo?
Yes, I think so. We may have
honor album, right?
We did. The song was included in in fact, actually, it wasn't a demo, if I remember right. It was included in a benefit album that the Indigo Girls put together for a native run environmental organization in the Midwest. The CD was called Honor the Earth, and that was also the name of the organization, as I recall. And we recorded it specifically for inclusion in that album. The song came from my response to the publicity that was being garnered by this organization called the Wise Use Movement. It was it presented itself as a grassroots, kind of practical, environmental movement that considered economic realities, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, it was corporate sponsored, and it was a con job, basically. Although some well-intentioned people bought into it, so the song is kind of a response to that.
I see that Keith Secola was on that album. I met him a long time ago. He had made a profound impact on me. Keith Secola and his Wild Band of Indians. By the way, never. We could go down that road later. By the way, going down that road is the next track from Rarities, solo, 1995. I meant to ask you what kind of person you were in each of these years and sessions, but then I realized that would be a completely different interview. Let's just stick to the music. Going Down the Road is from the movie, the Don Shabeb movie, which still to this day is considered one of the top 10 movies ever made in Canada.
It was a good one, and I mean it came out of nowhere. I mean, I'm not sure how I ended up being asked to do the score for that, but it came directly from Don Shabib, and
Did you get a credit?
Well, I probably, I don't know. I don't remember now.
On screen?
I haven't seen it for a long time, so I don't know for sure.
Somewhere along the way, I could be wrong.
I think I'd remember if I didn't get one.
Yes, you would. Yes, you would. Anyway, could that have led? It's interesting that could that have led to more film work if you had wanted to do that?
I don't know. Maybe I never really pursued it, but I found at the time that it wasn't at the stage I was at the time, and it might still be true, but I don't know. It hasn't been tested. But I felt that writing songs in the voice of a character other than me,
sure,
not what I wanted to be doing at the time. Like it was the music, the songs that were written for that album, or for that film rather, were intended to be reflective of the content of the film, and not my experience. I'd never been to Cape Breton when I wrote that song, and I certainly don't have any family roots there. But but you know, I could put myself in the place of the characters and try to come up with something, and that's what I did.
Well, you know the road. You certainly know the road. You know,
Well, the road part I do know,
yeah.
uh, but uh, um, but so I you know it felt like an interesting exercise, but not one that I wanted to repeat right away. So we never really looked into whether I could do more films or not.
Where did Whole Night Sky come from? It was a demo, yeah.
The Whole Night Sky is probably from a demo. It's I mean it's basically the same song as the one we recorded on Dart to the Heart, but uh, it was probably done as a demo for then for the before that album.
I made a note here. Charity of Night, 1996.
Oh, on the Charity. Oh, it is. I'm sorry. Yeah, my mistake.
Okay.
It is on the Charity of Night, and that's right. And on the Charity of Night, Bonnie Raitt does a great slide guitar solo, which is not evident on this version of it because it's just me.
Okay.
But
It's interesting. Whole Night Sky is a demo, and Grinning Moon, the next track, is also a demo. When does a demo become more than a demo?
when you go in the studio and record it properly,
And when does a
I
demo?
mean, by properly, I mean not that the demo's not recorded properly, but but you know, when the intention is that it's going to be part of an album that in my case at least that I'm working on, I tend to uh, see an album project as a whole
Yeah.
thing. I mean, other people will record a track here, a track there, and eventually they'll have enough to put an album together, and it becomes an album. But I've never operated that way.
My question was, when does a demo become more than a demo? And I understand that process of making it the song that we all hear, the tune that we all hear. But when does what does a demo have to show that it becomes its own song and released and heard?
You know, I mean, I can prove that to people without a demo. It's just it's good to have them to share. Like if we're getting
I
if
love
I
it.
have in the case of that song, well, the two songs you mentioned, and certainly of Grinning Moon, which never did make it onto an album until now. But those I remember doing that the demo that included that song. Um, because I had a body's worth of material ready to do an album, and or at least it felt like it. There were more that came after, but and this it probably was all about the Charity of Night. The in fact, it was because there's another song on the Rarities album. You'll probably get to this one, but the Come Down Healing that is
Yeah.
made up of pieces that were it was kind of dismantled and reassembled and some of it ended up in a song called Get Up Jonah on the Charity of Night, and some may have gone elsewhere, but that was kind of the original version of that. And so it's basically just so you know, there I am sitting on the horse farm where I was living at the time, and you know, coming up with these songs, and there needs to be a way to share it with people so they can see what's going on. And you know, if we're going to do an album, this is what it's going to consist of. That's the point of doing them for me.
I made a note beside Grinning Moon, uh, storytelling, narration, how you, it certainly wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last time that you sang us a song, constructed a song, but became the storyteller, became the narrator, almost like in a spoken voice.
Sometimes the songs do involve spoken word. The song "The Charity of Night," for instance, is all that, with a sung chorus. And
Exactly.
there are lots of examples in my of of that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, storytelling per se. Uh, some people are good at telling a story in a kind of linear narrative way. I don't have that gift particularly, but if you take certain elements, images, a hint of an event, that sort of thing, and you string it all together, it becomes a story in the process, and the listener is invited to kind of fill in the blanks.
Sort of
And
like Al Purdy standing in a big overcoat on a corner in the middle of winter.
Well, in that song, it wasn't Alberti. It was I mean, I imagined a guy,
No,
homeless guy, who was obsessed with Alberti doing that. But yeah. I mean, Alberti probably wouldn't have ranted on the street corner. He found other places to do that.
yes, he did.
But
I'll give you 3 Albertis for. Okay. Song for Turning Around the Stars. Very different. A Japanese recording or for the Japanese market.
we recorded it in Canada, but it was recorded for a Japanese tribute album to a tribute to the work of a Japanese poet named Kenji Miyazawa, who also was the author of very popular children's stories. And he was better known as that than he was as a poet, but he was a terrific poet, and I felt quite honored to be asked to contribute to that album. Actually,
Bruce Cockburn.
The song is a translation of a poem of his that probably came from a children's book. I'm not certain about that. But
I put a big check mark beside Bruce Cockburn, by the way, is our guest, Mulligan Stew, the Mulligan Stew podcast. And the album is Rarities. Come Down Healing. You mentioned it in passing. It's just you. I love Just You. And it's a demo of Just You. I'm prepared for all sorts of musicians and strings and choirs and gospel things and whatever. You, Just You, is my Bruce Cockburn.
well, I do a lot of that. And I started out playing in
Guitar.
in bands as a guitar player, basically. But when I became me, it was with the intention of performing solo. I mean, this is at the end of the '60s. I'd been in bands, and I'd had enough of that for a while, and I just wanted to play the songs that worked when I played them alone. And so kind of that's what I did. And eventually, I got tired of my own company and started bringing other people on tour with me. But I still do a lot of solo work. I mean, all of what I'm going to be doing coming up is solo, for example.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Actually, I wrote down a note to myself, The Children, which is I knew Three's a Crowd. I was friends with Three's a Crowd, but The Children I knew all about because they kept telling me about the band. You said something, I think you wrote it down somewhere as a quote. When I started writing songs, it was to put music to Bill Hawkins' lyrics. You said, at least the quote was quoted as 2005. And so I get to the track, The Trains Don't Run Here Anymore, which is from a tribute, I believe, to Bill Hawkins.
Yeah, that's and those are his lyrics in there. That's one of the collaborations that we did. One of the more successful ones. There were a few songs came out of that were worthy, and other songs from the time that don't stand up so well for me, but that one does.
So no more bands for you.
Not no more bands, but no more being the guitar player in other people's bands, I guess. At least for the foreseeable future. I mean, I'll work with a band anytime there's enough money to support that kind of tour, but or anytime it seems musically required. But more often these days, it's just it's much more practical to kind of think of touring solo. So that's what I'm doing.
I just to pause for a moment here. There was I don't know why I remember this. I've remembered half of my life, but I remember your name first coming up as a guitarist, and the speaker was Joni Mitchell. I can't remember if it was in an interview because we knew each other, or it was from the stage, but she was the first one to just rave about your guitar work, and he's a wonderful singer-songwriter, is what she said.
That was mighty white of her to use a horrible expression that my mother would occasionally drag out. That's very kind of her, and I'm surprised to hear that actually in a way. Although we were acquainted way back in the day, and we weren't like buddies that hung out or anything like that. But we certainly were acquainted. I remember having lunch with her in Ottawa one time, and running into her, and I haven't seen her for quite a while now, but we would sometimes run into each other over the years. And I have incredible respect and admiration for her work. So it's nice to hear her say that.
There's a remastering of Ribbon of Darkness, Gordon Lightfoot's tune, of course, um, with Colin on mandolin. Uh, this one came from the tribute to Gordon Lightfoot, yes?
Yeah, that's right. A lot of these people will gather this now. A lot of these tracks are taken from contributions to tribute albums of one sort or another, and that it was nice to be involved in a Lightfoot tribute, because there's another guy who was back in the day was hugely influential and really set a standard for the kind of a quality standard for the sort of singer-songwriter acoustic music that could be done, So
look at me flipping pages here. Turn, 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 which we know from Pete Seeger and the Byrds, of course. You recorded that for "Where Have All the Flowers Gone?" The songs of Pete Seeger. Who's in the studio with you? Can you remember?
Yeah, I think it's Ben Riley on drums and Steve Lucas on bass,
Okay.
Who I toured with a bunch in that period. And Colin produced that track also, and I don't think he plays on it. That's probably it. It's probably the three of us. I can't remember now if there was somebody singing or not. Maybe you can tell me.
No, I can't. No, I can't. No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. Honey Babe, Let the Deal Go Down. That was from the Mississippi Sheiks, a project that Steve Dawson did. God bless him. And did you pick the song, or was it assigned?
I had arranged a bunch of songs I could pick from, and I picked that one, and it was a go. It's great. And that was another really fun thing to work on. The song itself is great, and I wasn't familiar with the Mississippi Sheiks. I'd listened to a lot of other music of that of their time.
Yep.
From the 20s and so on. But I didn't know them, and so there was a great discovery for me to get into that music. And Steve was the shape it took in the studio had a lot to do with Steve. I mean, he had the horn idea, and we talked about it beforehand, but then it all sounded good to me. But it was really, I worked out my way of doing the song, and then he took that and ran with it.
Things About Coming My Way is the album that came from a tribute to the music of the Mississippi Sheiks. Twilight of the Champagne Sea, with Annie DeFranco. When did you record that?
It was recorded for, I'm pretty sure, for the album called "You've Never Seen Everything." It might have been the one after that, "Life Short Call Now,"
that's the one.
Is it? Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go.
Exclusively in
Japan. What's that?
Exclusively in Japan.
Well, it came out. That track is only on the Japanese album. It wasn't. It was left off the original release because something had to go. The album was very long, and it was, when that happens, you got to regretfully remove something from it, and that was what we decided to remove. But the Japanese company wanted something distinctively, something unique to their release, so we put it back on for that.
And you notice that there's no time for answers, only questions. And the final track is "A Bird Without Wings," previously unreleased. And where'd it come from?
That's one of the first songs I wrote that I actually liked.
Wow.
I mean, that I liked enough to keep it alive in a way. And I didn't do much about that, about keeping it alive. I mean, we never recorded it. I haven't performed it anywhere ever. But it did. So I don't remember how we ended up doing a demo of it. We did a demo, and that's what. Actually, that demo was old though. That's from when the song was new, which is like 66 or 67, something like that. I'm not sure when we did it, but it was recorded at a little studio in Ottawa, and along with a bunch of other songs, I guess, that we didn't choose to expose to the world.
We have 5 minutes here. Let's hustle up, and I'm talking to myself. What's the name of the new album coming?
The new album is going to be, at this point, it's a working title. So because we haven't actually done all the packaging yet, and it could change, although I don't think it will. I expect it to be called "Oh Sun, Oh Moon."
Okay. Solo?
Well, no. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, a lot of other musicians playing on the record.
Okay, fine.
It's which is more typical for recording than solo for me. But
you have special people coming in there.
Yeah, we got a bunch of great people.
Just give us a quick list if you have.
We've got Alison Russell, we've got Sean Colvin, we've got Jenny Scheinman, who's a great violinist, who's played with me previously. She's on a couple of tracks. We've got a great singer songwriter, is kind of in the bluegrass world, and mandolin player Sarah Jaros is on there, and I'm going to leave people out now that I start thinking.
Susan Glukark, you co-wrote something with her.
Susan Glukark, I'm glad you made sure I didn't forget Susan, because that song is actually pretty special, because it's one of a very few co-writes that I've done. And Susan and I, wrote the song together, kind of over the phone, pretty much. But during this COVID time, but we're both on the record singing it. So
Oh Sun, Oh Moon, and Buddy Miller made the session.
Buddy Miller made it. Yeah, I mean, we had and wonderful musicians from Nashville. It was recorded at Colin Linden's studio in Nashville, and so we were able to draw from that pool of players that live there, and there's some great people. I
am pleased to tell folks, with the last minutes that I have here, that you're heading our way, thankfully. Let me see, Victoria. Yes, February the 2nd, the Royal. The 4th, the Center for Performing Arts in Vancouver. The 5th in Kelowna. The 6th in Calgary at the Jack Singer. The 8th at the Winspear Center in Edmonton. Something to be confirmed. Oh, Saskatoon, I see. And then Burton Cummings Theatre in Parkway, and on to the Avalon Theatre in Grand Junction, February the 19th. There's that name again. Well, it's a busy time for you. It's just you're back on the road. You will be walking out on. Can you tell me just one final thought? In the 10 to 12 steps that you take from the side of the stage to the microphone and the spotlight, is there a transformation? Do you change? Is there an internal dialogue, a chant that you have?
That's an interesting notion. No, like by the time I am actually, I've taken my first step on stage, I'm kind of already there in my mind, waiting in the wings. Like there's a period of time before that where I'm kind of getting ready, and I go through the being nervous part of it, and the kind of telling myself that I would do in fact remember my songs, and all that kind of thing, and a kind of positive excitement too. It's not all fear and loathing about just getting out there and playing for people. So, but by the time I step on the stage, that's all kind of in the background, and now I'm already there.
Last question, yes or no answer if you care. Back in the early days when you're just getting started, did you ever busk?
I did, not a whole lot. But I did in Europe when I spent that summer between high school and college, bumming around Europe, and a little bit back in Ottawa after, and in Boston when I was going to music school. You tended to get busted for busking in those days, and so it didn't work as well as it would now. But and I wasn't as committed to it. I mean, I had other things to be doing besides that.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you. I hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, I hope so.